Relationship with emotions. Key mental health concepts: top-down and bottom-up processing, name it to tame it, emotional granularity, level of emotion versus level of problem, vagus nerve.
Emotions can both be our best and worst guides. Sometimes we become enmeshed with our emotions and cannot see clearly. The level of our emotions doesn't match the level of the problem. Learning to regulate our emotions is fundamental to a healthy life. By developing a healthy relationship with our emotions and learning to use our observer self, we can gain perspective, stay in our window of tolerance, and develop emotional intelligence. In this video chapter, you will learn essential skills for emotional regulation. These include identifying and labeling emotions, evaluating their intensity, and increasing tolerance of uncomfortable emotions.
What are emotions?
Emotions can be defined as sensations and physical responses to internal and external events that we make meaning of. For example, we may feel butterflies in our stomach as the emotion underlying excitement. Emotions can let us know when something is wrong or can guide us towards passion and meaning in life. However, when we are enmeshed or stuck in them, we become confused, stressed, and reactive. To understand emotions, you must use both your mind and your body. When is the last time you felt your heart race? You had butterflies in your stomach. You blushed. Your hair stood on end. Or you felt as if you were punched in the stomach when you got rejected. These are all examples of how emotions are experienced in the body. You have receptors in the brain that send signals down to the body that make you physically feel emotions. Likewise, you have receptors in the body that send information up to your brain that help you feel emotions. We call the first process top-down and the second bottom-up. If you feel anxious just thinking about a snake or something else that scares you, that's an example of a top-down process. On the other hand, if you suddenly see a snake slither away from your path, you might automatically feel fear in your body even before thinking. This is an example of a bottom-up process. Similarly, you can sink into a hot bath and feel relaxation take over your nervous system. Or you can just think about sinking into a hot bath and experience some of the same feelings. Scenarios like these demonstrate how your emotions are constantly changing and responding to your thoughts and experiences. The body and brain will have similar reactions, whether it is a bottom-up information from our body or a top-down information from your thoughts.
You are not your emotions.
Tyrone really wanted a new job. He had received excellent reviews as a social studies teacher over the last 5 years. There was an administrative position at the central office that fit his interests perfectly. He had submitted his resume and been offered an interview. As part of the interview, he would have to give a 20-minute presentation. As the day got closer, Tyrone began to question his ability to get through the interview. He imagined freezing and losing all words. 2 weeks before the interview, he started to get stomach aches and had difficulty sleeping. He was also agitated and found himself snapping at his family. He began to think about canceling the interview. This is the power of emotions. Here again, you can see the inner relationship between emotions, thoughts, and the body. Tyrone's fear was showing up in his body and was so intense he was considering giving up on his dream. Emotions can inhibit us from doing what we want. Recognizing that you are more than your emotions is a key to good mental health. Like in the check-in wheel exercise in Chapter 1, Mental Health and Mindfulness, you can use your observer self to examine your emotions and remind yourself you don't need to be ruled by them. In mindfulness practices, we focus on several statements to create some distance from our emotions and help observe them without being consumed by them. You are not your anxiety, your anger, or your excitement. You have anxiety, anger, or excitement, which is reflected in these I statements. I feel angry versus I am angry, or I am anxious versus I have anxiety. You can listen to your emotions and they can guide you, or you can decide not to listen to them. It is normal and adaptive for intense events to affect your body's ability to emotionally regulate, and there are skills you can learn to help heal. There are times in your life, around age 3, adolescence, and midlife, when you often have more intense emotions because of what is happening in your brain and body. Everyone is different, and some people feel emotions more or less intensely than others. We all have different windows of tolerance. Understanding emotions is related to overall health and well-being. It takes time and practice to get a better understanding of your unique emotional responses and how to use them wisely, to be able to answer questions like, why did I react that way? What is making me so agitated? How do I communicate this effectively? Do I need to do anything to resolve these feelings? Emotional intelligence as a tool for emotional regulation. Although emotional intelligence can have many meanings, one of the ways to view it is as a set of skills that can be learned. There are at least 3 categories of these skills. 1. The ability to be aware of emotions and name them, otherwise known as emotional granularity. 2. The ability to use emotions for problem solving. 3. The ability to regulate emotions and help others regulate theirs.
Name it to tame it and emotional granularity.
Name it to tame it is a phrase coined by Daniel Siegel, a psychiatrist at UCLA. It describes the power that naming our emotions has in helping us feel calmer. For example, if Tyrone could say he feels anxious or scared, he could actually start feeling less anxious or scared. Describing how we feel in words helps us get a little perspective. If we were our feelings, we wouldn't be able to describe them to someone else, right? It's because we can watch our feelings that we can put them into words. That means we are not our emotions. Another related skill is emotional granularity. Granularity means being specific, like at the level of grains of sand. Applied to emotions, it means being as specific as you can when you describe them. For example, feeling stressed can mean a lot of different things. There's feeling timid or slightly worried, all the way up to feeling terrified or panicked. Why is it important to be specific? Research has found that practicing emotional granularity helps calm the nervous system and reduces the intensity of the emotions. In one study, researchers recruited participants who had arachnophobia, a phobia of spiders, and told them to walk toward a tarantula, although they could stop at any time. Each participant was then instructed to do one of 4 things: label their anxiety, think differently about the spider so it seemed less frightening, distract themselves from the anxiety, or do nothing. The researchers invited the participants to return to the lab and walk toward the tarantula again. They measured how much the participants' palms were sweating, an indication of anxiety, and how close they were able to get to the tarantula. Those who had been instructed to label their emotions had the least physiological response and were able to get closest. In addition, the more emotions they could name, the less reactive they were, and the closer they got to the tarantula. In other research, practicing emotional granularity reduced the likelihood of acting aggressively. There are also long-term benefits for physical health. People with higher emotional granularity see the doctor less often and need less medication. They're also hospitalized for shorter periods of time than others with the same illness. In Tyrone's case, helping him recognize that he felt terrified and dreaded the interview instead of just identifying as stressed can allow him to think more clearly. Knowing he feels dread can help him question why he feels that way. He might realize he's worried he'll fail and make a fool of himself. After identifying this problem, he can respond rather than react to his intense feelings by developing strategies to help himself deal with the fear of failure. For example, he could garner support from friends and practice the interview and presentation a few times. We know that practicing something we're afraid of doing helps us feel more confident. Tyrone could also practice deep breathing and journal about why he wants to do the interview so his mind doesn't get hijacked by fear-based thoughts. With this plan, he'll be able to practice managing his fear so that he can move forward with his goal of interviewing for the new job. In this way, Tyrone is acting according to his values and not the level of his emotions.
Observer self. Level of emotion versus level of problem.
Emotions can feel big, but be about something small. For example, you may stay up all night worrying about a conversation you need to have with your partner. In the middle of the night, you may actually feel the problem is a 5 out of 5, with 5 being the highest severity. It can feel as if you don't say the right thing the right way, the whole situation will blow up. Your body reacts as if this is encountering a life or death situation. This is an example of your thoughts telling your body you are in danger, or top-down processing. You are lying in bed, totally safe and sound, but are experiencing high levels of stress, imagining a worst-case scenario. However, often what you are worried about isn't life-threatening. Even if there is a big conflict in your relationship, you can probably come up with a strategy to help resolve it, and it may actually improve your relationship or the situation. Other examples could include being frozen with fear over public speaking, getting furious that your partner keeps flipping the channels, feeling embarrassed about a comment you made at a staff meeting, feeling devastated by throwing an air ball during a basketball game. In all of these cases, the problem is not as big as the feeling, and is something that you won't remember in a few days. Using your observer self, you can identify when you are having these kinds of feelings to examine the level of the problem. Differentiating the levels. The scale in this figure can help you learn to differentiate between the levels. The scale for level of problem can be explained as follows. Level 1, momentary problem. You won't remember it tomorrow. The house is a mess, or maybe no one will go to the movies with you. Level 2, a little problem. You might remember it a week from now. The dishwasher breaks, you and your partner argue over whose family to visit for the holidays, things like that. Level 3, a medium problem. An event that could affect you for weeks to months. You might be having a major operation, or maybe you've lost a best friend. Level 4, big problem, an event that could affect you for many months or years. Maybe you were in an accident, lost a job, or have been emotionally abused. Level 5, there is an immediate danger to self or others. You may need to call 911. Something to note too is that some issues like racism and other forms of discrimination may fall into more than one category. For example, a racial microaggression experienced at work may seem momentary, but can also feel like a big problem related to society as a whole. Separating thoughts from emotions and noticing the level of the emotion versus the problem can be extremely helpful when your fears are not at the level you imagine. You may just be thinking about something, but not actually experiencing it, and not be consciously aware of this distinction. When you are more aware, for example, that emotions can be a 5, but that the problem itself may be a 2 or a 3, you can better calm yourself and respond to the situation. Doing this can help you increase your emotional capacity to deal with difficulties in life. Rather than reacting to every emotion, you have the perspective to respond.
Emotions come and go.
What do emotions have to do with mindfulness? Your observer self can help you discern when you should be guided by your emotions and when you should allow them to come and go without reacting to them. When you begin to examine your emotions, you realize they naturally come and go. They are constantly changing. You can learn to tap that central idea of the observer self, especially when you feel very stressed or depressed and are convinced that you will feel this way forever. This does not mean that some people have significant levels of depression or anxiety that need to be addressed at a higher level. It also doesn't mean you should not spend time listening to your emotions and using them to guide your actions. Instead, it means that even when you feel intense emotions, they are fluctuating, and you can learn ways to help decrease their intensity. You can better explore your emotions when you are not overwhelmed by them. Being mindful of your emotions means staying present with them without reacting or becoming enmeshed with them. You can see that emotions can increase in intensity at first, but at some point they subside, much like a wave. All emotions pass with time. So even if you feel like things will never change, that doesn't mean they won't. In the upcoming practices of surfing emotions and hand on heart, we explore how those emotions come and go and how you can deal with them the same way, as something passing rather than fixed and unchanging.
Anatomy and physiology. Emotions from bottom up or top down.
One of the main ways our brain knows how our body is feeling is through the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is actually a bundle of nerves and looks a bit like a tree with roots. The roots touch all of our internal organs, including the heart, lungs, and stomach. And like how tree roots send nutrients up to the treetops, the vagus sends signals from our organs to the brain. In fact, most of the signals in the vagus, about 80 to 90%, are flowing up from the body to the brain. We call this bottom-up processing. Our brain then interprets or makes sense of these signals. For example, if you feel like you have butterflies in your stomach, your brain decides whether you are feeling nervous or in love. The vagus nerve is also important because it's the main component of the parasympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for helping you slow down and relax. It's a bit like how the brake system in a car is the main way the car slows down. When we do things that help our body relax, the vagus nerve sends signals to the brain that all is well, and your brain can interpret this as feeling calm. The more we practice relaxing the body, the more we can rewire the brain to be better at helping us feel calm and relaxed. Often, when we feel overwhelmed, trying to think our way out of it, like telling ourselves to calm down, doesn't work. This is a good time to try bottom-up processing, using the body as an instrument to change how we feel. For example, doing something relaxing, like soaking in a hot bath, sends signals to the brain that the body is feeling more at ease. The brain can then interpret these signals as feeling calm. When you do something to relax your body, like stretch, dance, walk in nature, the vagus sends messages to the brain that help you know that you are relaxed. In bottom-up processing, our nervous system responds automatically to the environment without us having to fight our thoughts. Any healthy relationship includes acceptance, compassion, and good communication. By examining your emotions with curiosity rather than avoiding them, you can understand more clearly how to relate to them.
Let's practice.
Practice 1, surfing emotions. Take a moment to sit quietly, closing your eyes if you feel comfortable doing so, or leaving them open if you prefer. And now, move your attention inward. Notice any sensation you feel inside that feels like an emotion. It may be heat, a vibration, or fluttering. Or you may not feel anything at all at first. Just take a moment to observe what you might feel. What feelings go with those sensations? Try to stay with that feeling, observing its quality. Where is it in the body? Is it big or small? You might notice that the emotion changes as you observe it. Sometimes you might feel it more strongly, and sometimes it may fade. You can imagine being at the top of it as it gets intense, and then surfing down it as it lessens. Keep watching your emotions and noticing what comes up and when they change. If any emotion feels overwhelming, it's okay to open your eyes and refocus attention to something in the room around you. Reflections on the practice. Take a moment. Where did you feel or notice your emotions in your body? Did the emotions come and go in intensity? Sometimes it feels as if we're stuck in an emotion and it will never end. We want to develop an awareness instead that emotions are not as solid as they seem. Instead, they're always in flux and can change at any moment. All emotions ebb and flow with time. This is especially helpful to remember during difficult times. Practice 2, Hand on Heart. The following practice is a technique to understand how to use bottom-up processing to calm emotions. Though there is little research on this particular exercise, we know that touch is a powerful tool for releasing calming hormones. Many of the bottom-up practices we describe have been shown to be beneficial for post-traumatic stress and other stress-related issues. One great thing about this exercise is that it's easy to use anytime, even when you're out in public. Put your right hand over your heart for a few moments. You can keep your eyes open or closed. Notice any changes in your emotions or how your body feels. Now switch hands and put your left hand on your heart for a few moments. Again, notice any changes in your emotions or how your body feels. And now let's switch back and forth one more time with each hand. Put your right hand over your heart. Wait a few seconds. And then put your left hand over your heart. Did putting a hand on your heart make you feel any calmer? Did one hand feel different than the other? What are some examples of bottom-up regulation techniques you already do? For example, taking a shower, getting a hug, fidgeting, walking in nature, or exercising.
Summary. In this chapter, we explored the following ideas. Your observer self can help you increase your awareness of the relationship between thoughts, emotions, and the level of a problem. When you're more aware that your emotions can be a 4, but that the problem may be a 1, you can better calm yourself and respond to a situation. Daniel Siegel often uses the phrase, "name it to tame it," to describe the regulating effect that merely identifying the feeling can have on the nervous system. We don't need to fear or avoid emotions. Instead, we can have a healthy relationship with emotions and communicate our needs effectively. Living in reaction to every emotion leaves us feeling out of control, whereas living with our emotions and getting to know them better allows us to listen and respond with skill. The ability to regulate emotions is critical to good communication. Mindfulness helps us realize that emotions are forms of communication and can be used wisely. Used wisely, both anger and love have changed the world for the better. Knowledge that emotions are always changing can help increase your ability to get through hard times.